Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another online keeper chat. We're going to give everybody just a couple more minutes to sign in and get set up, and then we'll get started for real. In the meantime, take a look at these cool animals out in the exhibit. This is a type of animal most people have never heard of, but today you're going to learn all about them. All right, now that hopefully everyone is logged on and signed in and ready to watch, my name is Claire. I'm an interpretive specialist here at the Fort Worth Zoo, and I'm here to talk to you about some very cool animals that you probably have never heard of, specifically gharials. Now, gharials are those crocodile-looking things that you can see out in the exhibit behind me, and they are in fact related to alligators and crocodiles, kind of like cousins, but these guys have really skinny snouts. That's the easiest way to tell them apart. Now, like I said, most people have never heard of gharials, and there are a couple of good reasons for that. One is that they're found mainly in one country in the world, mostly in northern India. And the other is that we are one of only 10 zoos in the United States that have gharials. So they're not one of those animals that you get to see on every field trip, like the lions and tigers and bears. Now here at the Fort Worth Zoo, we have 3 gharials, 2 females and 1 male. Our females are the ones over here to the left. Their names are Rainy and Snaggletooth. They are 10 or 11 feet long each, and they have the slenderest noses. And then our male is over there to the right. He is aptly named Big Boy. He is about 14 feet long, and he's the one with the big bump on the end of his nose. Now that bump is called a gara, and that's something that all adult male gharials have. They use it to make buzzing noises and blow bubbles at the females, because apparently that's really attractive if you're a gharial. But they also, that is also how the species gets their name. The Hindi word for a small clay pot is gara, and so these are called gharials or gharials because he looks like he has a little clay pot perched on the end of his nose. Now you're going to get to watch a little bit of a training session here with Big Boy. It looks like the girls have decided they're not hungry, and that's okay. Maybe they'll change their mind in a little bit. But for Big Boy, our keepers are going to be doing a little bit of training and feeding with him. Now the training that they're doing here today is what we call station training, and that is where the animal is supposed to sit in a particular area, in this case right in front of that cone, and point his nose at the cone. And when he does that, he gets a fish. Each of the gharials has a different colored cone, and that allows the keepers to line them up how they want them and make sure that each gharial gets the right amount to eat and nobody is stealing anybody else's food. So it looks like our girls are going to come participate too, or at least Rainy is. Now in the wild, groups of gharials will live like this together with one male and multiple females. They prefer deep freshwater rivers, and they like to have sandy beaches for basking in the sun or laying their eggs. Gharials don't generally go very far from the water's edge though. They spend more time in the water than any other type of crocodilian, and they are really good swimmers. But the trade-off is that they are not very good at moving around on land. Alligators and crocodiles can actually stand up and walk or run on land if they want to, but gharials have pretty small legs. You can kind of see on the one that's up out of the water there, she actually can't pick her belly up off the ground once she's out of the water. So if they want to move around on the land at all, they have to do a kind of awkward belly drag, and that's not a very efficient way of moving around. Fortunately for the gharials though, they don't have to be very good at moving on land because they catch all of their food in the water. You've probably already noticed that these guys are eating fish, and gharials do actually stick mainly just to fish. That's because those slender snouts don't have nearly as much bite force as an alligator or crocodile would. So while alligators and crocodiles can eat pretty much anything they come across, fish, turtles, birds, small and large mammals, gharials stick mainly just to the softer stuff like fish. Now, the first question that most people ask when they hear that the gharials eat fish is, don't the gharials eat the fish that are in the tank with them? And the answer is not usually. Our gharials get fed often enough that they don't usually feel like they have to go hunting for themselves, which is good news for the fish out here in the tank with them. The gharials know that it would be easier to just wait for the keepers to come and put food right into their mouths, like you just saw them doing, instead of actually swimming around in here and working for their food. I know what you're thinking though, but that doesn't make them lazy, it just makes them energy efficient. You wouldn't cook your own dinner either if you knew somebody was going to be bringing you food for free. Now you might think that it would take a lot of fish in order to keep our gharials happy and well fed, but actually our gharials just eat 2 or 3 big fish 3 days a week, which means that over the course of an entire week, I actually eat more food than Big Boy does. And that can be pretty surprising since he's 14 feet long and I am only 5'4". But the difference in our appetites really has less to do with our size and more to do with what type of animal we are. So I am a mammal, and Big Boy and the girls over here are reptiles. And reptiles do not produce their own body heat like we do. Mammals like us work really hard to keep our bodies warm all winter long, and our bodies work really hard all summer to produce all of the sweat that we're going to be sweating here in another couple of months in Texas. With gharials and other reptiles though, if they get too cold, they can sit in the sun, and if they get too hot, they can sit in the water. It doesn't cost them any energy. We also tend to be more active than the gharials do. We work hard at school, we do our chores, we run around in the backyard, play games, but gharials just kind of hang out in their pool and take naps. So they're pretty energy efficient and they don't burn as many calories as we do. Just because gharials aren't very active most of the time though, doesn't mean they can't be good hunters when they need to be in the wild. Their slender snouts are perfectly designed for catching fish because they don't have a whole lot of surface area and therefore not a whole lot of water resistance. That allows the gharials to whip their mouths back and forth through the water really quickly whenever they sense a fish swimming nearby. Once they've caught that fish, they will stick their head up out of the water, tip their head back, rotate the fish around, and swallow it whole, just like you saw them doing when the keepers were feeding them just a minute ago. Now it may seem kind of weird that the gharials would swallow their food whole when they have these nice mouths full of sharp teeth, but gharials don't actually use their teeth to chew their food. Gharials have more teeth than any other crocodilian species, about 110 at any given time, but they don't use their teeth to chew. Instead, they use them just to hold on to those slippery fish until they can manage to swallow them. The coolest thing about gharial teeth though, is that they don't just get 2 sets of teeth in the course of their lifetime like we do. We get our baby teeth, and then we get our adult teeth, and then if your adult teeth fall out, we're just kind of out of luck. We have to get fake ones. But for the gharials, they can lose and replace each tooth up to 50 times over the course of their life. 50 times 110 teeth is 5,500 teeth over the course of their whole life. That's an awful lot of teeth, and I think the gharial tooth fairy must be broke. Now, gharials may have an overabundance of teeth, but unfortunately, the world does not have an overabundance of gharials. Gharials are currently listed as critically endangered, and there are estimated to be only about 650 adults left in the wild. So here at the zoo, we want to be able to breed our gharials in order to help expand the population in zoos in the US. But that has turned out to be a little bit more complicated than with most of the animals that we breed here at the zoo. In fact, only one baby gharial has ever been born in the United States, and that was at a facility in Florida just a few years ago. Since we don't really know what the missing piece is for the gharials in them needing to breed successfully, our keepers have been trying all different sorts of things to see if they can figure out what they need. So they've tried heating the sand on the beach to see if it makes a difference what the temperature is where they lay their eggs. And they've tried setting up a sprinkler system on the building next door so that we can simulate a rainy season in their habitat, since the weather is different in Texas than it would be in India. We haven't had any babies yet, but we're still hopeful. And really, the fact that there is still so much to learn about gharials is one of the things that makes them so fascinating to me. So if you like them as much as I do, go and share your new knowledge with your friends and your family. People can't care about animals that they don't know exist. So the more everybody knows about gharials, the better for them and the better for us. So I'm going to open it up to you guys now. Do you have any questions about the gharials for me?
Can you tell us how old these guys are?
Yes, big boy is 39 and our girls are both 40.
And how fast can they swim in the water?
They can swim about 15 or 20 miles an hour in the water, which doesn't feel very fast when you're in a car, but that's a whole lot faster than humans can swim.
Are they endangered?
They are. They are currently listed as critically endangered. And like I mentioned before, there are only about 650 adults in the wild currently.
And how many eggs do they lay?
They can lay anywhere from 35 to 50 eggs. The females will dig a hole in the sand on the beach, lay their eggs, cover them up, and then guard the nest until they hatch, which is generally about 2 or 3 months later.
And how can you tell the difference between a male and a female?
With the gharials, that is actually really easy to do. With alligators and crocodiles, the males and females look pretty much the same, but with gharials, the females have the really slender snouts, like the girls up on the beach there, and the male has that big bump or gara on the end of his nose.
Are they social with each other?
Yes, they do live in groups in the wild, just like we have them here at the zoo, with one male and multiple females.
And what is their life expectancy?
The oldest gharial known in a zoo was in her 60s. So these guys still have quite a while.
And why are their snouts and mouths so long?
Those snouts are really long to help them catch fish, which, like I said, is one of their favorite things to eat.
And what is the bump at the end of their nose?
The bump on the end of the male's nose is called a gara, which is the Hindi word for a small clay pot. And they will actually use that to make buzzing noises and blow bubbles at the females.
What are their primary threats out in the wild?
In the wild, they face a lot of different problems, mainly overfishing and loss of habitat.
How do they take care of their young?
The females don't carry their young like an alligator or crocodile would, but they do protect their young once they're in the river, make sure they stay safe from predators while they're really small.
And how long can they hold their breath?
So we don't know exactly, but they can definitely hold their breath over an hour. The cool thing about reptiles, though, is that they can hold their breath for longer when it's cold than they can when it's warm. Because when it gets cold outside, their metabolism slows down and they don't use as much oxygen.
Do they have any predators in the wild?
There isn't a whole lot that's going to mess with an adult gharial except for people, but when they're smaller and small enough to be bite-sized, there could be other animals that would want to try to make them a snack.
So these guys are crocodiles. How many crocodilian species are there?
So these guys actually are not crocodiles, but they are in the same family as crocodiles.
And how many different species are there? Do you know? Or different?
26 different species of crocodilian in the world. And that's split up between alligators, crocodiles, gharials, caimans. There's lots of different kinds.
And how much do they weigh?
We don't actually have a scale that Big Boy fits on, but we estimate him to be between maybe 800 or 900 pounds.
And where are they found in the wild?
They are found mainly in northern India in freshwater rivers.
And who do they share this exhibit with?
They share this exhibit with a couple different kinds of fish and a couple different kinds of turtles. So the turtle that's actually come up here to visit us is called a painted terrapin. There are also fly river turtles. And then the two main kinds of fish in here are tinfoil barbs and danios.
And is there a way that we can help these guys survive in the wild?
Definitely. One of the best things that we can do from here in the US is to tell people about them. Like I said, most people have never even heard of gharials before, so the first step towards successful conservation is everybody knowing and caring about them. And that's something that you can do from at home, even when you're quarantined.
And can you tell us their names again and who came up with those names?
You know, I actually don't know who came up with the names, but our male, who we're looking at right now, is named Big Boy, and then our females are Rainy and Snaggletooth.
And can you kind of describe a little more about the training that took place?
Sure. So these guys are what we call station trained, which means that they have learned to go to a particular area, specifically in front of their colored traffic cone. They sit in front of the cone and point their nose at it, and then the keepers give them their fish. That allows the keepers to make training time and feeding time a little bit more organized than it would be if it was just a big free-for-all.
And how long does it take to train a gharial?
That's a good question. Gharials and other kinds of crocodilians are actually pretty intelligent, but this training took place over quite a space of time, and they built up little by little. So first they taught them to stay in the water with just their head out, and then they started working on the station training. So it sort of builds over time. Just like you don't jump right into algebra or calculus in school, you have to start with the basics and build your way up.
And how fast can they move both outside of the water and in the water?
Outside of the water, they are very, very slow because they have to do a belly drag everywhere. They can't pick their stomach up off the ground when they move on the land, but in the water, they can swim about 15 to 20 miles an hour.
And one more time, can you tell us how old they are?
Sure. Our male is 39 and our females are 40.
And last question, how big are their teeth?
Their teeth vary in size depending on where in their mouth they are, but I actually have a couple of them here if you want to see up close and personal. So you can see compared to my hand, they have some in the front of their mouth that are going to be a little bit bigger like this, and then some are even smaller than that. But all of them are very long and needle-like and good for holding on to those slippery fish. For comparison, this is a crocodile tooth. And so he's got much larger teeth, but not as many of them as the gharials have. All right, so for you guys at home who want to continue the animal fun into your afternoon, I have an activity for you. So we talked about gharial teeth and how they use them not to chew, but just to hold on to their food. And they are not the only ones that have different uses for their teeth besides just chewing. Some animals, like venomous snakes, actually use hollowed out teeth, which we call fangs, to inject venom into their prey. Some animals, like beavers, might use their teeth to actually chop down trees, which we as humans definitely can't do, but beavers are very good at it. And some animals, like elephants, have modified teeth, which we call tusks, and they might use those to defend themselves, to fight with other animals, or in the case of elephants, even to dig up the dirt when they're looking for water. So my assignment for you is to look around in your backyard, look in any books of animals that you have, and see if you can figure out what the different ways are that animals use their teeth. Since for us, they're pretty much just for chewing, but animals can get a little bit more creative. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. If you want to share your findings with us about animal teeth, feel free to post on social media and use hashtag Fort Worth Zoo. I'm looking forward to seeing what you find and what you discover, and enjoy the rest of your day at home.